I'm gonna be honest with you. I was not following the trial of Aaron Dean, who was the man who murdered Atatiana Jefferson. Now, I believe Lisa Cabrera was talking about it, or she was covering it. So shout out to her. But I have my reasonings when it comes to certain trials and not covering or talking about certain things because of the outcome, like the one you're about to hear. So in case y'all don't know, Aaron Dean was found guilty of manslaughter, not murder, manslaughter of Atatiana Jefferson, even though we clearly saw that this man murdered her. Like it was we saw it like literally happen on his body cam, that this man pointed his gun into this woman's window when she was playing with her nephew and shot this woman to death in cold blood. And he gets found guilty of manslaughter and only faces up to 20 years in prison. Key words are up to, not a definitive 20, but up to, which means it could be less than 20, but not more than 20. A former Fort Worth, Texas police officer was found guilty of manslaughter Thursday in the 2019 shooting of 28-year-old Atatiana Jefferson in her home. Dean, who is white, faces up to 20 years in prison for the conviction. He had pleaded not guilty to murder, a charge which carried a possible sentence of 5 to 99 years. Jurors were instructed Wednesday to also consider the lesser included offense of manslaughter. Dean, in a gray suit, showed no emotion as the verdict was read. Members of Jefferson's family were expressionless in the courtroom as the judge announced the verdict. There were no immediate comment from family members. Defense attorneys had said Dean fired in self-defense, but prosecutors argued there was no evidence he saw a gun in the black woman's hand before firing through a bedroom window. Exactly. She was playing a game with her nephew. Jefferson's 11-year-old nephew, who was with her at the time, and Dean's police partner, who responded with him to what they believe was a burglary, were the primary witnesses to the shooting and testified at trial. Dean took the stand and said he fired at Jefferson because she pointed a gun at him. The verdict comes more than 3 years after Dean and his partner responded to Jefferson's house around 2:25 a.m. on October 12, 2019, in response to a neighbor calling a non-emergency police line to report that her doors were open. That neighbor got a lot of flack behind that. The jury got the case Wednesday afternoon after closing arguments in which the state portrayed Dean as a power-hungry former cop whose preconceived notions about the neighborhood where Jefferson lived tainted his conduct the night of the shooting. The defense countered that Dean fired his weapon in self-defense while fearing for his life in what attorneys said was a tragic accident but not a criminal act. So they implemented he was in fear for his life. They just had to implement that there. They just had to put that in there to try to, well, not even try to, because it's clearly it worked with the manslaughter conviction that he got. I wouldn't be surprised if his attorneys tried to appeal that to the point where they remove it altogether. Dean resigned days afterwards and was arrested and charged in the killing of Jefferson. If you can't feel safe in your own home, where can you feel safe? Tarrant County Prosecutor Ashley Diener told jurors in closing arguments on Wednesday. When you think about your house, you think about safety. It's where you go to retreat to get away from the world. Dean, the prosecutor said, had a tremendous amount of power when he put on his uniform. When you put on that badge and you put on that uniform, you say you're going to serve and protect us all. That means her too, Diener said of Jefferson. In the Fort Worth Police Department, those officers that do serve and protect us, that don't have those preconceived notions, that did a thorough investigation in this case, are ashamed that they are ever called somebody like him a brother in blue, she added, referring to the former officer. Defense attorney Bob Gill told jurors Dean feared for his life as he peered through the bedroom window that night. The state cannot prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this was not self-defense, Gill said. It's tragic, but it's not an offense under the state of Texas. Holding his hands in the air to show the size of the gun Dean claimed he saw through the bedroom window, Gill told the jury, what is immediately more necessary than having a handgun stuck in your face? And you have heard from several people, starting with Aaron, that the handgun was this big when he saw it. Gill added, if you believe that Aaron was legitimately defending a third person and reasonably defending a third person, or if you had a reasonable doubt about whether he was doing such, then you are to acquit Aaron. And you don't have to agree that it was self-defense or defense of a third person. You just have to decide in your mind that he reasonably believed he was doing one of those two things. Listen, this woman was playing with her nephew. Why would she be operating with a regular gun with a child in the home? They were playing a game. And he literally looked in that window, and the first thing he saw was what he alleged was someone pointing a gun at him. If anybody should have been feared for their life, it should have been her and her nephew. Dean testified Monday that he fired at Jefferson because she pointed a gun at him. As I started to get that second phrase out, show me your hands, I saw a silhouette, the former officer said. I was looking right down the barrel of a gun, and when I saw the barrel of that gun pointed at me, I fired a single shot from my duty weapon. Now, you want to know what's so crazy? When it comes to PC individuals, they can do all of that, and they will try to reason with them and whatnot, and try to give them a chance to explain themselves. With us, no. He saw that and immediately fired at her and killed her. Imagine how traumatizing that had to be for her nephew to see that in person, and then having to recount all of that on the stand during this trial. Like, he had to literally be re-traumatized all over again. Dean said he had his weapon out because he believed the home was in the midst of being robbed. He fired at her through the window because we're taught to meet deadly force with deadly force. We're not taught that we have to wait. That seems very one-sided, because when it comes to other people, that meeting deadly force with deadly force doesn't seem to apply very often. In cross-examination, however, Dean admitted many of his actions that night were bad police work, including firing without seeing her hands or what was behind her, failing to tell his partner he saw a gun, and rushing into the home without fully ensuring it was safe. You've got another fellow officer from the Fort Worth Police Department entering a home which you would have determined to be a burglary in process with a possible armed assailant, and you didn't think to tell your partner, hey, there's a gun inside? Prosecutor Ardell Simmons asked. No, Dean said. You didn't think to tell her, hey, I saw somebody with a gun? Smith said. No, Dean replied. Dean's testimony is pivotal in the trial, which also featured body camera footage of the shooting and testimony from the primary witnesses, Dean's police partner, Carol Darch, and Jefferson's 11-year-old nephew. On the stand, Dean described the silhouette he saw as being bent over facing the window with upper arm movement. He grew emotional as he spoke about the moments after he shot Jefferson. I observed that the person that we now know as Miss Jefferson, I heard her scream and saw her fall like this, Dean said, gesturing in a downward motion, and I knew that I had shot that person. He said that after firing the shot, he tried opening the window to render aid, but couldn't get it open, so they ran around to the front door and entered the home. He and Darch went into the bedroom and saw a child there. I'm thinking, who brings a kid to a burglary? What is going on? See, this is what I'm reading right now is all the more reason why giving him the manslaughter charge or finding him guilty of manslaughter is pissing me off. The prosecution first witness was Zion Carr, who was 8 years old, in the bedroom with his aunt Tay, as he called her, when she was shot. Now 11, the boy testified they had accidentally burned hamburgers earlier in the evening, so they opened the doors to air out the smoke of the house. He and his aunt were up late playing video games when Jefferson heard a noise outside, and so she went to get her purse to get her gun. And he testified he did not see her raise her firearm toward the window. He testified, so that's why she got her gun, because she heard a noise outside, and that noise was most likely him. Just like any other person would if they feel like it's being suspicion. And she most likely, of course, was licensed to carry. So again, who's really the bad guy here? We know it's not the deceased. Zion said he did not hear or see anything outside the window, but he saw his aunt fall to the ground and start crying. I was thinking, is it a dream? He testified she was crying and just shaking. Prosecutors also called to the stand Dean's partner, police partner Darch, who testified that she was with Dean when they went to investigate the home. She said she believed the home was being burglarized because 2 doors were open, lights were on inside, cabinets were wide open, and things were strewn about the living room and kitchen area. She had her back to the window when Dean began to yell out commands for Jefferson to put her hands up. She testified. Darch says she started to turn around, heard a gunshot, then looked over Dean's shoulder and could see a face in the window with eyes as big as saucers. She testified she did not see Jefferson holding a gun and didn't recall Dean ever saying Jefferson had a gun. An attorney for Jefferson's family says she was trying to protect her nephew from what they both thought was a prowler. She had moved into her ailing mother's Fort Worth home for a few months earlier to take care of her family, attorney Esley Merritt said at the time. She also took care of her nephews. Jefferson graduated from Xavier University of Louisiana in 2014 with a degree in biology and worked in a pharmaceutical equipment sales, according to her family's attorney. Man, this is a sad situation all the way around. Sad that this happened to this woman. Sad that this happened in front of her nephew, that he had to relive all of that over again. You know, in that testimony, that's probably another reason why I couldn't watch it, because I knew that they was going to put him up on the witness stand, because he was a key witness. He was right there. Imagine if this guy was even more worse shot and ended up shooting her nephew, all because of him. She got her power tool because she heard what she thought could have possibly been an intruder. So while this person was claiming that he was going after someone that was allegedly burglarizing a home, she was trying to protect the home she was staying at from what could have possibly been a burglar or worse themselves. And she's the one that ends up dead. And they give him a manslaughter charge. Now, I'm reading this caption. Y'all can't see it, from Professor Black Truth's post on Twitter. He said, the murderer Aaron Dean's "I was afraid for my life" lie was knocked down by a majority white Texas jury with no black jurors. Keep that in mind. This jury had not one black juror on this trial. So they were trying to fix it then. It goes on to say, but the crooked DA's ploy to tell the jury to convict him of manslaughter instead of murder was successful. The district attorney. So that sounds like to me that if the DA didn't get in the ear of these jurors, they would have definitely found this man guilty of murder. And he would have been facing way longer, a way longer sentence than what he's about to get. I keep telling y'all, the Operation Protect the White Boy, again, playing out in full effect. Now, I wonder if he's going to, get another job after his sentencing is done. I guess we shall see. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened before. But I'm curious to see what that sentencing is going to look like. Remember, up to 20 years. Which means not to exceed 20. And I would not be surprised, again, if his attorneys try to appeal it, especially since he only got a manslaughter conviction. Now, if it was that one that they should have gotten, yeah, appealing that would have been hard. And I guess they figured we got to do something to get some kind of a win, because last year they was kicking our ass all through that court. I mean, you had Ahmaud Arbery, his murderers was going to jail for life. You had Derek Chauvin going to jail for like 20 some odd years. And you had that other chick, that PC woman. They said, oh no, we got to find a way, because they on the streak, and we got to cut that at the ankle, or at the knees, I should say. And here we have this situation here. I'm almost certain they probably would have wished that it would have went the distance and he be let off completely. But at this point, they might as well, because beyond the next step after manslaughter is to pretty much walk away scot-free. This was a weak conviction, and they know it.